Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for another Osteoporosis Canada Cook with OC webinar. Before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices, located in Toronto, are on, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli. I'm the Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your cooking demo host today. Now, this webinar will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It's not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice. If you have any questions, please contact a registered dietitian or your healthcare provider. Now, during the webinar, of course, we would love to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments related to the content, just click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen or enter your comments in the chat. And we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. So we do this program because it's all around nutrition. And Osteoporosis Canada is working to provide strategies, new ideas, and develop recipes to help you get the nutrients needed for good health. And nutrition is a key component for strong and healthy bones. Calcium, vitamin D, protein, magnesium, and vitamin K are all needed for bone health. And of course, Osteoporosis Canada recommends that whenever possible to get bone building nutrients through food sources. So what do these nutrients do and how much do you need daily? Visit the nutrition section of the Osteoporosis Canada website. That's osteoporosis.ca/nutrition. And there's lots of information about each of these nutrients, the required daily allowance or recommendation for each of them, along with a list of foods, suggested foods that you can consume to make sure that you're getting enough. Now, today's cooking demo featured recipe is a spring vegetable tart. And the vegetable tart per serving has 300 milligrams of calcium, 16 grams of protein, 0.4 micrograms of vitamin D, and 84 micrograms of vitamin K, along with 40 milligrams of magnesium. And this recipe, along with others, of course, again, can be found in the recipe section of the Osteoporosis Canada website. I will also pop the URL link to the Spring Vegetable Tart in the chat. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our friend, Emily Richards, who is a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she is the author and co-author of 11 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating. And she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. So let's welcome Emily.
Hello, Tracie. Hey, everybody.
Hi, Emily. We're making a spring vegetable tart. Does it feel like spring where you are? It's not so springy here. It's very rainy and cold.
You know what? It's a little rainy, it's a little cold, but I have
Yes.
the oven on and it's warm and I have lots of fresh herbs. So spring is definitely in the
Yes.
air.
We can bring spring into the house with recipes just like this one.
That's
And
right,
before we get
exactly.
started, we're going to, as we always do, give away one of our unbreakable aprons, a lovely new one, just like the one Emily's wearing. And if you're on at the end of the webinar and I call your name, we will contact you and we will make sure to get you that apron. So Emily, what are we doing today?
Well, I love vegetables. I hope we all love vegetables. I love the ease of making things with puff pastry. We're combining the two and making this beautiful tart that I actually think is lovely to serve smaller pieces for an appetizer. You could serve it as a side dish if you wanted. You could have it with more greens and have it on top of a salad to change things up a bit. But most importantly, it kind of celebrates some of the spring vegetables that are out and about that I think we long for. For those of us joining us from Canada, you know that there's those spring vegetables that kind of hit us first, and we're just can't wait to get, the first taste of them. One of them being asparagus, which I absolutely adore. And leeks is another one. But you know what? You can get leeks year round. And Tracie and I were talking about this earlier. You need to eat more leeks. They're fabulous to cook with, and they have such versatility. And I'm going to give you a little bit of tips on how to clean them, cut them, and keep them, for longer. So, and we're going to add color. Most importantly, we're going to get some calcium today in I think, a unique way of combining some cheese and yogurt and an egg in there to create this beautiful tart. So we should really get cooking because that's really what it's all about in the end. I actually have to be attentive and listen for the timer because I wanted to have a beautiful tart to show you at the end. So it's just finishing up. So I have my recipe here. If you need the recipe, Tracie will probably put it up in the chat, but it's also available at osteoporosis.ca. So not to worry. I need the recipe to make sure I have everything. If you're following along, make sure that I add everything because that's always important. All right, so we're going to start off with this lovely leek. So leeks, typically you find them in the grocery store. If you're going to a market, they sometimes sell them individually or in a bunch of 2 or 3, depending on their size. So this is a fairly good representation of a leek. And in the recipe, you'll see it calls for white and light green part only because it has these the top kind of leaves, the stalk that you won't be using because they're a little bit tougher to cook down. So I usually just cut those off right from the beginning. And this is something that if you are making stock or if you want to roast some veggies or if you're roasting a chicken or a roast beef, you can actually put these on the bottom to add some flavor as well. It makes a really nice base, almost like a vegetable rack, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. And I'm also going to trim off the end here. And then I'm going to make a long cut lengthwise right down the middle to expose all these lovely layers. So leeks have that, and the reason why they have that color difference is because of how they grow. They're kind of growing in the dark, so they have this beautiful light color. So this is really nice and tender down here and that light green. So I want to make sure that there's no dirt kind of tucked away in these layers. So I'm just going to rinse it under cold water to make sure that I can get it nice and clean. And you can do this ahead of time. And if you wanted, if you had, 3 or 4 leeks that you were picking up, you could just do this all at the same time. You don't have to do this individually. I often will clean all my leeks at once, and then I will put them in the crisper, cut either in half like this or in quarters so that they take up less space because they're pretty long. And then as I need them, I can just take them out. They're already clean and ready to go. You can also freeze them like this if you wanted to. But I find the most versatile way to freeze them or keep them in the fridge is to slice them up. Because then you can grab a handful and you can use these like an onion or a shallot. And I find they have a little bit more of a delicate flavor, which is perfect kind of this time of year if you're looking for, a softer onion flavor. And I'm just going to thinly slice these. Okay. So just with your knife, you want to go across and do some nice thin slices. Now, if you wanted to use this as a side dish, you could cut these in half, toss them with a little bit of oil, salt, and pepper. And then what you could do is put them in a casserole dish and then just have them roasted from the oven. And then finish them off with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, breadcrumbs if you wanted a little crunch. They're absolutely delicious. So, maybe a vegetable that you don't use very often, but maybe you want to reconsider it. So if you don't want to use leek, I should give you that option too, because I'm sure there's some of you that are like, you know what, Emily, that sounded lovely. I'm not going to use the leek. And that's okay. But you can use an onion here if you wanted to, shallots. This would be beautiful with a red onion. Okay, so I'm putting my whole leek in here. I'm going to add some oil to this pan, just a couple tablespoons. I'm using extra virgin olive oil. If you wanted to use whatever oil you have at home, you totally can. I'm just getting a little bit of that flavor here from the oil itself. And we're going to start cooking this down to soften. And we're going to add some garlic to it as well, because I think whether it's onion, leek, shallot, I really like the combination. So I'm going to add a couple cloves of fresh garlic, okay, that I've minced ahead. If you want a softer garlic flavor, you can just thinly slice the garlic and leave it in larger pieces so you'll get a softer garlic flavor, okay? Do you need to chop it fresh? Do you want to use it from a jar? That's up to you. I leave that up to you. Because I often get that question. A lot of people, for the convenience, they use a lot of garlic. So they like to buy those little processed jars of garlic. Totally up to you if that's what you're using. What I always recommend, though, is that you figure out how much you like as 1 clove of garlic. They usually make a recommendation like 1 teaspoon equals 1 clove of garlic. But if you love garlic, add more. Okay, so this one, I'm only using 2 cloves, but you can happily add more garlic if you want a stronger garlic flavor. I'm just going to peek in my oven here because I need to check on this. I'm just going to put this here, pretend like I'm not doing anything. You can't see anything. And you won't see anything because I'm hiding it. All right, so we're going to cook our leek and garlic here. And we're going to get our other vegetable ready, which is the asparagus. Okay, so asparagus, you will find right now a local vegetable typically this time of year. I know in Ontario, it sprouted a little bit earlier than usual, which is always fabulous. And when you look at asparagus, it can be very thin, it could be very thick. It really just depends. I have some beautiful thicker stalks here of asparagus, and you want to just wash them. And when you're picking them up, you want to make sure that the tips here are nice and tight. So that's a nice sign of a fresh asparagus. As they age, they kind of start to open up a little bit. Totally okay. Just use them sooner rather than later. That's all. Okay. So what we're going to do is trim them. So typically they'll have been cut from being picked, and then they start to split a little bit. They dry out from the bottom. So that can be a little bit of a tougher end of the asparagus. So I'm just going to kind of line them up here so that I can trim them all at the same time. Now, if you'd like, what you can do is you can also snap them down here as well. But because I want to use as much of the asparagus as I can, I'm just trimming them all consistently, okay? And then we're going to chop them up into about 1-inch pieces. Got to turn this down a bit because it's a little high. There we go. So just kind of keeping them all in line here and chopping them. But what I want you to notice is as I get closer to these tips, because they're so beautiful, I want to save some of those so that they're a little bit more obvious on top. So I'm going to leave them just a smidge longer. Okay, so I'm going to take my time to leave those a little bit bigger there. So it's little things like that when you maybe go to a restaurant or you see something, a beautiful photo, food photo in a magazine or online. It's little things like that that help things pop and make you recognize that it is asparagus. Okay. All right. And it's simple to do at home. So you don't have to, take too much time to do it. So our leeks are getting a little bit of color, which I'm totally okay with. But most importantly, they're wilting and getting soft because that's really our goal here to do that. So then we're going to add our asparagus. I'm going to just put that right in here. Make sure they're jumping all around. So they're all going to go in. And then we're going to add a pop of color with some red bell pepper. Okay. And I just thinly slice this kind of just to get a nice little bit of a different texture, a different look. Now, if you wanted to, this could be, if you love the color of the green, which I do, I think in springtime, I always think of green vegetables. This would be great with some fresh spring peas. Snap peas would be lovely. And I would still treat them the same way where I cook them a little bit first because I don't want to put them onto the tart raw. I want to have that opportunity to get some of the water out of the vegetables so that when they go and roast, they don't add any more liquid to our tart. Okay. So this is just going to cook for a few minutes. So do we have any questions so far, Tracie?
Not yet. We did
Okay.
have Winalda says hello from Nova Scotia, and
Oh,
Beth does say that she also freezes her leek. But I guess, I have a question slash comment. I buy the same thing normally. So if I buy onions, I've always bought onions. I will continue to buy onions. And then I kind of one day was like, I don't need a big onion. So I started buying shallots
mm,
just to kind of like switch it up. They all have different flavors, but I'm looking at you chop that leek going, I've never bought a leek before, but I know that they are such a different and also a delicious flavor. So I think it's sometimes like what's available and sometimes it's the price point and the
mhm.
ease. Like, do I feel like peeling an onion? Maybe not. Maybe a leek's the way to go, right? We're gonna like rinse it instead.
Well, I
Um,
think sometimes when you like you saw how big that leak was, right?
that was
So
huge. Yeah.
oftentimes people are like, where am I going to put that leak? Because it's so
Yes.
big and you might have a small refrigerator. So that's why it's a great idea to just kind of get home, clean it, cut it, and then have it at the ready so that you don't have to worry about trying to store this, big thing and in the shelf in the fridge.
And it is more fibrous, I think, than regular onions. Is that right? So freezing it would be different than freezing, let's say, like a white onion.
It's still gonna like once you freeze any onion, including a leek, the cell walls will absorb the water and
Right.
start to break it down. So if you're cooking it from frozen, it actually gets softer a little bit faster because that freezing process has changed the cell structure. That was a
Okay.
little bit of science. I probably
There
shouldn't
we
have
go,
gone.
everyone. We offer everything in these webinars. It's all good. But yeah, but that's, you know what, that's really interesting. And then when I was watching you with again, yes, asparagus is everywhere. How much asparagus has everyone been eating? Have you at all? Because some people are like, I don't know. I understand that as having, a dislike for other green vegetables, but I will eat asparagus. But what about white asparagus and purple asparagus? Because they're not the same. You don't treat them the same, I don't think, especially the white. I could be wrong on that.
Well, in this case, you could because it's just
Good. Okay.
a quick little stir fry, and then we're roasting it off, and the purple will color will remain quite well. It's usually that purple asparagus that dissipates in color if it cooked longer. So oftentimes, if you're looking for that beautiful purple color, oftentimes people will, shave it with a vegetable peeler so that you can see that purple color come
Oh,
through and add it
nice.
to a salad or a
Yeah.
quick blanch and then in cold water. So in this case, it's really about what you have access to and what you like. And that's why I think it's nice to have, the thought of those other green vegetables available. You might want to make this in February and you have
Yeah.
a bag of frozen peas.
We love
Use
frozen peas
use
because
frozen peas in here.
handy, they're on, in the freezer. I do a similar kind of veggie tart, and I seem to do it when I have so much zucchini, I just don't know what to do with it anymore. And it's actually a great way to use a zucchini. And also for someone who loves mushrooms like I do, I'm putting it in there. So again, just to kind of put it out there, when you switch something, the nutritional value is based on how the recipe was developed. But we also develop the recipes so that you can, whatever it is you need to do to cook it at home. And honestly, for small households, this is a fantastic recipe because even if you're one person, lunch is made for tomorrow or dinner. You can have half of it now and, half of it tomorrow. I know it said like one serving. If you're hungry, you can have two. There you go, whatever you would like. But,
Well,
but
okay,
yeah,
so I'm going to say something because you
yes,
mentioned zucchini and mushrooms, which are both
yes,
awesome vegetables. They're both
yes,
very watery.
yes.
So
So to
if you
cook,
cook those a little bit longer, if you're
yes,
going to do them in here, so make sure that you get a little bit of golden brown color on the zucchini and mushrooms if you're
yeah,
using them, because you really don't want to add that water in the oven because we want I'm going to call it a custard because frankly, I think it's a beautiful custard. The
yeah,
combination of the yogurt, cheese, and egg, which is what I'm going to make now. But and then the additional water that you would get from those vegetables would weigh it down. So you really want to kind of cook that a little bit. So that's
exactly.
also why we're cooking this a little bit as opposed to putting everything raw on the vegetable or sorry, on the tart.
And
We're
just to
cooking the
kind of keep
vegetables.
exactly like just to kind of keep like so let's say you have leftover veg from dinner the night before, like especially in summer, maybe you've grilled some eggplant or you've grilled some zucchini or you've, cooked whatever veg you have. Could you just maybe heat it up a little? Not even. You could just put that on if it's already cooked, right?
Totally, because it's already
Just
cooked and it's already that
yeah.
excess water from it is already gone. So that would be beautiful. And if you don't want it to be like if you want it to be a little bit more placed, then that's where those cooked vegetables would come in handy because you could literally, place them. You could do a beautiful if even if you wanted to grill the asparagus and then put the
Oh yeah.
asparagus over top, that would be great. However, I will warn you, when you go to cut it, sometimes it won't cut as beautiful as you think because you have these long strips of asparagus that you have to actually
Yes.
cut through so they can shift. So, because trust me, I tried it before committing to this as a recipe. I thought, oh, this would be beautiful if the asparagus was all the way across. But then you can't kind of pack as much in there. And it's really about getting all that flavor in there too, because I really wanted to use the surface area of that tart to kind of jam as much flavor as I could. I'm also going to add my first fresh herb here, which is just parsley.
Oh,
Um,
yum. Okay, you go do that, and then ask me for questions later.
okay.
Okay. Keep.
So just parsley here, but if you had, I had my mint is already like gone crazy in the garden, so you could use mint. We are going to use some fresh basil in our custard. So if you wanted to just stick with one herb, you totally could and use basil in here and basil in the custard or parsley for both. Mint, cilantro for you cilantro lovers would work beautifully in here too. Stick with more of those softer, delicate herbs for this tart because it really kind of showcases the spring vegetables really, really nicely. So we're going to make that custard, which I was telling you about. Anytime I have kind of an egg and cream, milk, or dairy combination, I refer to it as a custard. And the reason being is because it kind of lifts much like custards, it has that lighter quality because of the egg, and then it has that beautiful flavor from the combination of the cheese and the yogurt that we're using. So I'm using, this is Boursin cheese. So it's an herb and garlic soft cheese. If you wanted to, this could be an herb and garlic cream cheese. This could be a farmer's cheese where you add a little bit of garlic and fresh um, herbs to it. So it really just has to have this nice kind of soft texture. So you can see as I push on it, it breaks apart. And there's different versions of this. There's plant-based versions of it as well. So whatever, you want to use, you totally can. But here I'm bumping up our protein a little bit by using plain Greek yogurt. Okay. So this is half a cup of Greek yogurt. And this also adds a little bit of tang to it, which I think is quite nice because the vegetables do have a little bit of sweetness, the red pepper and the asparagus as well, which is always a nice combination. So that plain yogurt is going in, and you can use 0%, 2%, whichever you normally have in the fridge. And then I'm also going to add an egg in here as well. So that's going to kind of help lift our cheeses a little bit. And if you wanted it to kind of dial down the herb and garlic flavor, you could just use a plain version of a soft cheese as well, or cream cheese. Okay. So you just kind of want to mash this together. If you can have the cheese at room temperature or thereabouts, it makes it a little bit easier to have it all come together. Um, I find that it's still a little too firm to use a whisk, but you're more than welcome if you have a good sturdy whisk to whisk it all together. I'm just going to set this aside because I'm going to get some of my fresh basil leaves here to chop up. So this has, I think it's 3 tablespoons. If you needed to add more, that's totally okay because I think what makes this tart is the combination of like all these beautiful fresh herbs as well as the cheese. I often love having that combination, even if you're just making a cheese tray. If you want to, slice up a little bit of fresh basil or take these pretty little basil leaves and sprinkle them over the cheese, they're great just to kind of nibble on as you're eating the cheese. They add a really nice bit of freshness to it and sometimes a little bit unexpected, which is nice because you don't always have that fresh herb flavor with cheese. Okay. So there goes my basil leaves. I'm just going to kind of bring them all together. And you don't have to do a really fine chop for this basil. You could leave it a little bit chunkier so that you have a really nice fragrance that comes through. Just do a nice little chop that way. and add that to my cheese mixture, just like so, and give that a stir. Okay, there. And that's our custard layer. So this is ready. Our vegetables are ready. And we're going to add a little zip, more flavor with some shredded Parmesan cheese. So this is a chunk of fresh Parm that I've used the cheese grater for. So I've left it a bit bigger so it's a little bit chunkier. I didn't need it to be really fine. If that's all you have, if you have grated Parm already, that is a fine grate. You could use that here. You might not need half a cup because it may come across as a lot. You could always sprinkle some on afterwards, which is really nice too. Okay, I'm going to grab my puff pastry and my sheet pan. Okay, and I have the oven on at 400 degrees. So when you're working with puff pastry, it's always good to have your oven kind of ready to go. And I have parchment paper on my baking sheet as well. And most puff pastry now comes either rolled or folded. This one is folded, and there's 2 sheets in the package. So you just kind of unfold it. We're only using 1 sheet. So if you're wondering what to do with the other sheet, you can make a second tart, or you can just use it for other things. If you take it out while it's still frozen, you can just leave the other one in the freezer. The best thing to do is to let it thaw in the refrigerator so it stays nice and cold so that you really value the puff that the pastry will give you. If you need it fairly quickly, there is a recommendation on the package. You can leave it on the counter for a couple of hours to have it thaw. If that's the case, try to unfold it while it's still a little bit frozen because it won't be as sticky. It happens to get a little bit sticky because it's just thawing a little bit too quickly. So my recommendation is always, if you can, remember to do it in the refrigerator. Okay. Now, this is just a little trick, a little guideline so that you get a little bit more puff around the edge. So I'm just taking a little paring knife and doing about 1/2 inch all the way around. I'm just scoring the edges here because this is where I want my crust to be, if you will. Okay. So I'm trying to match corner to corner here as best I can. There we go. So I'm going to focus on putting everything on the inside and leaving these edges empty so that they puff up a little bit more than the inside. Okay. So then very simply, we just build our tart. So our custard goes in the middle. Okay. And you can use a spoon or a spatula, whatever is easier for you. I'm just going to use my spatula and just push it out to the edges here. So you have this nice custard layer that goes on first, like so. I'm gonna make sure I get all the goodness off my spoon here. Okay, leaving the edges like that. And then by this point, your veggies should be a little bit cool enough for you to handle. And then you can start putting them on the top. But what I am gonna do is, remember we left those asparagus tips. I'm just gonna pull those out first so that they can kind of stand out on top a little bit more there. And then just try to put your veggie mix on as evenly as you can. This is where you can take a little bit of time to make it look beautiful. Okay, and spread out your red pepper and asparagus. Okay. Oh, there's the other tip. I knew there was another tip around there. Okay. And it's okay if some of it falls off the edge a little bit. And then I'm going to put our beautiful tips kind of on top here so that they stand out a little bit more. There's another one there. Get the rest of these guys in there as well. I need some more red here. Okay. And the leeks are nice and tender. You can kind of sprinkle them around. If they fall off the edge, they get a little extra crispy, which is really nice. I'm going to move this over here and give my hands a wash. And then we're just about done. I love this recipe because if you have everything on hand, it comes together really quickly. And the benefit is that you can also serve this at room temperature, so you don't have to bake it and serve it right away. This is just that shredded Parmesan that I'm sprinkling all over. If you wanted a stronger cheese, this would be lovely with a crumbled blue cheese. If you wanted something a little bit more tangy, goat cheese would be lovely, an herbed goat cheese that you can add on here. Okay. And then this just goes into our 400-degree oven, like so. And I'm going to put the timer on so I don't forget about it, because that will definitely happen. And through the magic of me doing my work earlier, there's our finished one. What do you think, Tracie? That's pretty quick for a spring tart, isn't it?
I think that that looks pretty delicious. I was struggling getting my I don't know why my camera, what is happening. Oh, technology.
Oh, I know
But
what I forgot. I
tell
went
me,
so
go,
fast.
go, go, go.
I forgot to put the salt and pepper in the custard. Don't forget to put the
Oh.
salt and pepper in the custard. I did. I put it in this one. I know for sure. Because I just went over here. I'm like, oh, what was the salt and pepper for? This is why I need to cook with people around me in the room. Because if you guys were all here with me, you would have said, and maybe some of you were doing it at home, Emily, you forgot the salt and pepper, but I can't hear you.
Oh
So
my God. Well, and you know what? The boysen has a bit of the salty, and the Parmesan is a little salty, so you're going to get that. But you could add the fresh grated pepper on after. But
yes,
that does
yes.
look beautiful. And so I thought it was really interesting. You showed everyone how you scored. So you didn't cut through the puff pastry to make your frame, because that's what actually the heat and the steam actually, Roy, if you Roy, he does all our tech at the back. If you just do there you go. You see how it kind of puffed up the edges, and that's why you don't want to put the that's the crispy bits. You don't
I don't
want
know
to
if
put
you
the
can.
filling all the way to the end, because then you want it to just come up just a little bit. So that looks great. Emily, how long in the oven again?
So, in my oven, it usually the temperature is at 400, so about 25 minutes. But if you have a hot oven, puff
Mhm.
pastry can go like that. So I would start checking it, just before 20 minutes if your oven's running a bit hot. You need the high heat to help puff the puff pastry. That's kind of the whole point, because that gives it that nice crisp texture. So start checking it around 20 minutes, and then it may, and for some of you that your oven's running a little lower, it might need to take half an hour, but you do want to have this beautiful golden brown outside. And then you can see the cheese kind of, Parmesan's very unique that way, because in this case, because it's a dry heat, it just kind of melts in place. So you can see the pockets of, you can see that beautiful spear of asparagus right there. And you can see the color come through really nicely. This would be beautiful finished off with, some more fresh herbs. I actually really love this with balsamic glaze, because it just, to me, helps give it that little bit more sweetness, and acidity that I think works really well with these vegetables. And because of the shape, so I'd said you could serve it as an appetizer. I'll just show you here. So this would serve four. So if you wanted to eat this like a pizza, you totally could, right? So here's a quarter of it, and then you can just pick it up and eat it like a pizza. Absolutely delicious. You could also take this and serve it on some salad greens and use a fork and a knife and cut it. It would be delicious, especially while it's still a touch warm. But if you wanted to serve it as an appetizer, you could just cut it a little bit smaller here. Okay, so I'll cut these into eighths like that. Okay. And then you have these great little bite-sized appetizer pieces that you can enjoy as well. Okay. So that's what's great about these types of things. If you are having a little get together at lunchtime and everyone's bringing something, this would be a great thing to serve, especially because you can make it ahead, serve it at room temperature. Or if you wanted to pop it in the oven to warm it up a bit, you totally could. But I would be very happy if someone served this to me and, I was going over for a little lunch or an afternoon get together. This would be great for drinks. This would be great for lunch or dinner, or even as a side dish if you wanted to cut it into six and serve it with. This would be great with roast salmon, or if you were having grilled chicken or a steak, this would be absolutely delicious.
I'll be right over, Emily. Sounds good.
Okay.
It's like
Perfect. I'll
exactly.
save you
I'll
one.
just come
I'll
right
save you
over.
one
I
of
want
these.
the corner piece. I want I want the
That's the
corner
great
piece.
part about making these squares is everybody gets a corner piece. Nobody
Nobody fights over
complains.
the corner. Exactly. And so I know I'm seeing a couple of questions about all the nutritional breakdown and timing for a few things. It's all in the recipe, in the link that we put in the chat. It's all on the website. So I encourage you to go visit that way you get the full recipe and the full breakdown. I think this is such a great opportunity for you guys to personalize exactly what you want. Somebody said, would you use straight balsamic vinegar? So
Mm,
you could. There's also the kind where you do a bit of the glaze, or maybe, Emily, would you, while you're sauteing the veg, would you add a bit before? Because
I
again,
totally
it's
could.
very liquidy, right? You want to be careful
Yeah.
how much
So if
liquid you add.
if you don't have a glaze, which I don't know if you noticed, like when I poured it, it kind of
Yes.
just stays in place, so it's a little bit thicker. You can use just regular balsamic vinegar. You could add a tablespoon in with the vegetables near the end of cooking, and that will brighten up the flavor. Balsamic is a great little kind of tool
Oh,
in your
for
pocket.
everything.
Soups, sauces, anything like that, you can add a splash in and it really brightens things up. The other thing is if you want something more like a glaze, you can actually take your balsamic vinegar, about a cup of it, and add about 3 tablespoons to a quarter cup of brown sugar, boil it and let it reduce slightly, and you've created your own glaze.
Yeah.
So it gives it a little bit more sweetness, but what that brown sugar does is it caramelizes it so it has a little bit more of that kind of drizzle quality
That
that you could serve at the
viscosity,
end. Yeah.
right? That you want to uh oh, that does look yummy. Couple of other, I'm just scrolling as we look. We're gonna let Emily because she did the taste test. So somebody asked a couple of things. They had said that they, going back to the asparagus comment, they had never seen white and purple asparagus. And I think like it's not carried, it's not common. It's like carrots. You can get purple and yellow carrots. They're not readily available, I think, everywhere. So I think it's something if you come into contact with, you may choose to purchase and try it out. But I don't think it's like a common ingredient everywhere. Emily, what do you think?
Yeah, most grocery stores, like if you're a grocery store shopper, most often you will not find them in the grocery store. If you go to the markets, you more than likely will see them there. And if you're curious about cooking with them, the best people to ask are the farmers that are there at the market because
Yes.
they grow them and they typically eat what they grow as well. So they might give you kind of the inside scoop of how they like to make them. I know the one time I went to a local market here, there was white asparagus, and I asked the young lady, she was in her teens, and I said, "Do you eat the white asparagus?" She's like, "Yes, I totally do." And she said, "My mom makes them and serves them with hollandaise sauce, and we love them." So, sometimes it's these simple things that you're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that, asparagus can be really good with just a little bit of sauce." Sometimes we think that we have to overcomplicate things. Whereas
Yes.
this, we really just, if you think about it, there's no real seasoning in here. I didn't use like a dried herb. I didn't use a spice. I'm really relying on all the freshness of the flavor of the ingredients that I'm using, like the fresh herbs and the vegetables themselves. So sometimes it's nice to be simple.
Well, we do like that. And I mean, this is where the versatility. So I know when I make mine, because I love olives, I will
Mm.
put olives on mine, Kalamata olives, because I like the bit of that briny. I also find olives a bit meaty. So I like to add a bit of that flavor profile. Maybe you like, something else. This is where we hope that you will go through, even with the cheeses, like Emily said. Maybe you're like, feeling a little more goat cheese today. Again, read your product labels. These are suggestions. Somebody did ask if you had to be gluten free, is it easy to find a gluten free puff pastry, or could you substitute a gluten free pie crust or something else?
So basically, it's the base that becomes the tricky point, right? Because when you think about it, everything else that we've used is gluten free. So it's that puff pastry. So I've had friends that have ordered puff pastry, like frozen puff pastry online with success. It never puffs up quite the same, but they're happy with that replacement. You could use a pie pastry here as well. So, and if you don't have to make your own, you could just
Mhm.
buy even a frozen pie shell in the container and let it thaw and make a circle. It doesn't have to be a square, and then you can cut it into wedges and
Yeah.
use that as the base. Because we're using that high heat at 400, it will cook through. Definitely stay lower to the oven if you're using a pie pastry, and that you'll have a little bit more ease of finding a gluten-free pie pastry. Or you can make your own with gluten-free flour, which is really nice. Or, you could even, this is between me, you, and Tracie right now, everybody. But you can use some gluten-free bread as the base and do the exact same thing because the bread will toast up beautifully and you can do individual portions, right?
Think
So,
of like, like you get the gluten-free bread, like a garlic bread, you could just
mhm,
cut and like toast it maybe a little bit, or just put the custard in and
yeah.
just distribute it, and there you go.
This is why we're here, people, so that we can share all these
Giving
ideas.
ideas to help you do it. You know what? Somebody has a really good question. So you make this ahead because we love make ahead too. And you have people coming. Would you have to put it in the refrigerator? Like if they're coming in the afternoon, you make it in the morning. What do you think?
So this
Would
is
you
a
reheat
comfort.
it?
This is a comfort level for people. So for me, and a recommendation is about that 2 hour time period, right? So if your refrigerator, if your house is steaming hot and it's July and not recommended because we do have dairy products in here. Tuck it in the fridge and then pull it out. Don't put it at 400 again because it will become very, very much golden than what you want. So just drop the heat a little bit, 325, and let it warm up. The pastry will crisp up again, and then you can serve it that way. So you can make it in the morning, tuck it in the fridge, and then warm it up before your guests arrive. You can even do it the night before if you wanted to. It won't still have as much flakiness, but it will certainly taste quite delicious. I did freeze some because I know everybody loves freezing. And it just was a little bit soggy, but it tasted good. So you can freeze it. I wouldn't freeze it for a long time. Like don't let it, don't forget about it in your freezer because we don't have enough fat in here to protect it. So it does tend to weep a little bit and get soggy. But I still ate it. It was lovely.
It's all about what you really want, right? And somebody has been cooking along with you. Beth just messaged us. It's in the
Oh,
oven,
wow.
she said, and it smells delicious. So Beth decided to get all the ingredients and she's been making it at home. So good for you, Beth. And you
That's
know what?
awesome.
Somebody just gave me a great idea. Margaret just asked, how about focaccia to use, like you could buy focaccia. Well, what about a gluten-free pizza dough?
Hmm.
There's a recipe on the website for a white rapini, kind of similar pizza, which is a great recipe. And you could use, because that you could easily freeze, right? And it would
Hmm.
be, it's different, but you could get a gluten-free, or if you don't want to use puff pastry, a regular
Yep.
pizza dough. You could
You
just
totally
buy it.
can because it's about the temperature and the length of time that we're cooking here, right?
Yeah,
So 400 is great for pizza dough. And remember though, pizza dough, there's going to be a lot more pizza dough. You might only need half of the package of pizza
good
dough.
point.
And so roll it out again. Could be a circle, doesn't have to be a square. It could be the shape of Australia because we all know that sometimes rolling pizza dough out is not what you expect.
Yes.
Um, and then just put everything on and bake it. And I would probably start checking it at like the 15-minute mark for a pizza dough or a thinner type crust. Same with even the pie pastry. And then you're looking for that nice golden brown color. The egg really helps lighten that custard so it's not so dense. I don't know if I take a piece up here and show you, it's kind of hard to see, but um, you can kind of see, oh, well, where's the camera? There it is. You can kind of see here that where it puffed up on the edge a little bit, and then down here it got weighted down. But you can see that underneath it's got that beautiful golden brown color, and that's where the crispness comes in, right? When you take that bite. And that'll happen with pizza dough as well.
Well, that sounds pretty awesome. Um, the last thing I'm just checking here, I think a lot of people, some people are laughing that you said the shape of Australia. Whatever country you happen to roll your dough in, you know, we're global here. It's wherever. That's awesome. But no, this is really great. And I would say people have emailed us after to say, I made it. We would love to hear from you. Let us know. how it is. You can also share it on social and tag Emily and tag Osteoporosis Canada or on Instagram and Facebook. We would love to know what you think of our recipes when we share them. And you've done the taste test. I'm going to give the apron away. So I'm just checking really quickly here. I was doing a quick check. So congratulations to Celine Champagne. What a lovely name
Oh,
from
yes.
Orleans, Ontario. Congratulations, you are going to get our Unbreakable apron. So thank
And
you so
as
much
an
for
aside,
yes,
I know we don't normally talk about this,
yes.
Tracie, but this would be lovely with a sparkling wine. The bubbles would just lift it up quite nicely. So,
Oh,
or sparkling cider, anything, a little bit bubbly, sparkling water would be absolutely delicious. I'm having another
you
bite
know,
because it's so good.
I think you should, yes, everyone, we should enjoy, we should enjoy. And I just also really quickly, Emily told me the cutest story before we started. We have people who are on pretty much every cooking demo that we do, and they will, if they see us in the community, especially Emily, they will go say hi. And so someone did just recently. And if you're on, thank you for, going up to Emily and saying hi. And I love it when people come and greet us when we're at public events and stuff like that, just to tell us what they think of our program. So we really appreciate everyone, joining us. And before we go, we do have a couple of new recipes. So I encourage you to check out, of course, the website. And couple of little FYIs. We are going to be doing an event in Sudbury, Ontario. And if you are in Sudbury and would like to help us out, we are looking for some local volunteers. Please email us, volunteer@osteoporosis.ca. We've got a couple. We're looking for a couple more. That would be great. And also, this is for just an FYI. It looks like there will be a Canada Post service disruption starting tomorrow across the country. So please note that anything we would mail to you will not be arriving until the disruption is over. And if you are looking to make a donation, we ask that you do it online. It's all safe. It's very easy. Osteoporosis.ca. You can see it easily on the website, or you can call our number toll free. The numbers right there. We appreciate all the support we get because it helps us do programs like this. And oh, yes, there we go. And download the nutrient calculator. This is great. It's going to tell you how much you are getting of the 5 nutrients we talked about: calcium, vitamin D, protein, vitamin K, and magnesium. And we've got our replay. Check out our recorded webinars, just like today's recorded cooking demo. And we have a new podcast, Oxalates and Phytates with Dr. Geneviève Malhout, an excellent podcast. We have another one that we're going to be launching in the coming week. So, everything's on the website. Please visit. And lastly, thank you. Subscribe. You should all be getting our information. Follow us on social. Thank you, Emily. As always, a lovely cooking demo. I wish everyone a sunny, happy day. Happy cooking, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye, Tracie.
Bye.